What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. Apologize for being a little behind this week. I've had stuff going on past couple of days. Had to take care of stuff with my stepdaughter with cheer. Had to go to, and then storms came through, did some damage to one of the trees out. I had to take care of some limbs and things, that a whole bunch of different things. Kind of excuses, but I mean, it was stuff that I had to take care of. But and I was kind of, to some degree, delaying, particularly on talking about this bill, because I was trying to wait to see just what happened and what come about in the bill. But here we are. We have the big beautiful bill, which is crazy enough, kind of its actual legal name to some degree, has been passed as of like 3 o'clock or something today, 3:30, something like that, Eastern time. The House passed the bill 218 to 214. It was previously yesterday, or the day before, in the Senate, and it had a split majority, a split decision there, 50-50, which then the vice president had to break that tie, which is what sent it to the House. So, what is in this thing? You had a lot of well, before we get to what's in it, you had a lot of people, this is just a silliness here. You had a lot of people, a lot of Republicans holding out on this thing due to certain things that they didn't agree with or whatever, or they thought that it was going too far in this direction or not far enough in this direction. And there were a lot of wheeling and dealing going on through this whole thing. You had representative from Alaska that was holding out, a senator, I think that was a senator in the Senate, holding out on that she didn't agree with some of the cuts and stuff that were being done, or some of the kind of bad stuff in the that would hurt her state specifically, and so she got carved out, like waivers and stuff, or things that she would be exempt from. Her state would be specifically exempt from, so that her state wasn't affected by it, but all the remaining states would be. So that, that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. People who are willing to, not really holdouts in the idea of it just being bad for people in general. It's just like, what can you do for me? We know it's bad, but if you, I will sign on to this if you will exempt my state specifically, and then we're good. Like that kind of shit. Like, don't give a damn about the rest of the country. As long as my people are taken care of, I don't care. That's as I've talked about this before in the Republican Party. This is such a huge thing in conservatives and Republican Party, especially MAGA, is the just selfishness of this party, and how they only give a shit about themselves and don't care about anything that they do and how it affects other people. It's just blatant. And then even in representatives, yesterday, Wednesday, apparently late last night, there was some holdouts on signing on to the bill, and there was suddenly, Trump was like, well, what can I do? What we are talking back and forth apparently to Mike, and Mike Johnson, about what can I do to, let's get these people in here. Let's try to make some deals and whatnot. And you literally had some that apparently, reportedly, went into this meeting, this just snooze fest with Trump, not ready to sign on to the bill. And all it took was some signed merchandise, some signed MAGA merchandise or whatever, some good, some patting on the back, and these people folded and signed and agreed to vote yes for the bill over some signed hats, memorabilia, office pictures and stuff like photos or whatever, opt photos, signed by President Trump. And they were like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll sign on to it. Don't worry about why I didn't want to. Like, the fact that maybe this may have hurt some people in my state or may have hurt some people here or there. No, as long as I'm getting a signed autograph, MAGA hat or a signed autograph photo, or there was apparently also one that was told he could buy from the pro shop, like a golf shirt or something like that. Oh, okay, something like this is what we're talking about here. This is what we're talking about here. People who don't have any type of actual fundamental depthness to their opposition. It's just about what can I get? What can I get out of the deal? And even the just stupidest, simplest, nothing to even do with the bill kind of ways, where all they had to do was just get a little signed autograph and and he was really nice to me. He told me that he liked seeing me on TV. That was one of the representatives that went in there, come out reporting to reporters. Oh, he said that he liked seeing me on TV, and that was nice. That was really nice. He was kind. He was funny. It was, yeah. So I decided, yeah, okay, I'll sign on. This kind of shit. All right, so here's the details. This is from the Independent. There's a pretty decent breakdown. The House of Representatives on Thursday passed President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, or as some were calling it, the big, ugly bill, the big bullshit bill, which features sweeping cuts to Medicaid and nutrition assistance programs after a whirlwind 24 hours of last-minute arm twisting of holdouts, Republicans, and a record-breaking floor speech from Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, which apparently was completely pointless. A final vote was a narrow margin of 218 to 214, with every Democrat and 2 Republicans holding out. Thomas Massey and Brian Fitzpatrick voted against the measure. After Jeffries repped his 8-hour and 44-minute delay tactic, which surpassed former GOP McCartney's magic minute back in 2021, which was 8 hours and 32 minutes during the Build Back Better Act, the House finally commenced its vote on Trump's bill. The magic minute procedure grants members... that's pointless. We have a big job here to finish, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, with one big bill. With one big, beautiful bill, we are going to make this country stronger, safer, and more prosperous than ever before. The bill will now be sent to Trump by July the 4th deadline he'd insisted upon with the congressional Republicans in the House and Senate. So that's the other thing. We talked previously about how Trump does things as a show. He does it for appearance-wise, as if this is some TV show that's being broadcasted to America 24/7, and he's writing the script, and things got to go the way he wants it to, and so the idea here was that he wanted it to be done and finished up, and so he could sign it on July the 4th, Independence Day. He wanted to tie this bill to Independence Day, making a big soiree on TV. That's this big signing thing that's going to be publicly broadcasted on TV of him signing this one big, beautiful bill. But yet, even when he had meetings with um, Senate or representatives, and like stated to them that if you want to get reelected and whatnot, you need to not make you need to make sure you're not touching Medicaid, you need to make sure you're not touching Medicare, Social Security, or whatever like that. And apparently, someone in that meeting, member, House representative, whatever, is like, but sir, we are touching Medicaid. Like that's the big thing we are touching here. So Trump himself either doesn't fucking know what is in this bill, had nothing to had no idea what was actually being put on here, but he's advocating for this thing to be enacted and be done by July 4th, but yet he doesn't even know what's in it or what it's going against or how it's going to look or how it's going to appear to the American people and who it's going to affect. Or he does know and he either doesn't care or just is trying to warn them, hey, remember, y'all set this up. So, if you want to get reelected, this is probably not going to help you get reelected. As if the same thing wouldn't go for him. Although I guess he feels like he's exempt because no matter what he does, nothing is his fault. And his supporters will support him no matter what. And we see that more and more because his rating amongst MAGA, his approval rating amongst MAGA is actually gone up. All the shit that's happened it's actually gone up. They support him even more. It's like 90%, 94% approval in MAGA. So, White House Press Secretary Leavitt told reporters after its passage that Trump would be signing the legislation at 5 p.m. on Friday in what she described as a big, beautiful signing ceremony at the White House. Leavitt said the bill's passage marked a victorious day for the American people and predicted that the legislation would create an economic boon for the United States of America. We're going to continue to bring in revenue, drive down our deficit, and we'll have more money back in the pockets of the American people. And this bill is an encapsulation of all the policies that the president campaigned on and the American people voted on January 5th and entrusted the president, the Republicans, to enact. She called it a great day in the country and for the American people. A senior White House official who worked on pushing the bill through Congress called the tax cut and spending package a historical achievement for the Republican Party and for President Trump because the voluminous bill satisfied. That was, I guess, the editors of this. Anyways, satisfies virtually every major campaign promise that Trump made. It represents him keeping his commitments to the American people, everything that he talked about with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime pay, no tax on seniors, Social Security, to securing the border, rebuilding our military. It's all in the bill. Although there are like sunsets for a lot of that very quickly. It all comes to head after a day of grumbling from a handful of conservatives who criticized the Senate version of the bill and handed down the House for passage back just in time to meet Trump's deadline. But after meeting with the president and receiving promises from the White House, an all-caps threat from Trump on True Social overnight, members of the hard-lined House Freedom Caucus voted to push the bill through. Throughout the process, never mind, we're going to skip that. Trying to get down to where it talks. Okay. This bill is the most sweeping pieces of Republican domestic policy legislation in history. Not only does it extend the 2017 tax cuts that Trump signed in his first presidency, it also includes money to hire 10,000 new agents for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, and 3,000 Border Patrol agents. A core tenet of Trump's promise to conduct mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. It also contains money to construct a barrier along the United States border. So I think it was some either somewhere between 20 something million or 40 something million. It was a huge chunk of it actually going to supposedly continue the building of the wall. So, yeah. Along with around 150,000 beds for immigrants, in these camps, like the alligator Alcatraz that I'm going to talk about in another video, which means and tells me that they are going to build like multiple of these facilities all across the United States. I mean, there's already been reporting that they already have plans to build another one in North Florida at an abandoned or barely used runway, just similar to the one that they did down in South Florida. So I think they're going to probably look for that in every single state and build these facilities in many states as possible to try to hold people that they basically abduct. The legislation further allows for more oil exploration and massive increase in military spending. As at its core, the package priority is $4.5 trillion in tax breaks enacted in the 2017 first term that would expire if Congress failed to act, along with the new ones. This includes allowing workers to deduct tips and overtime pay, and a $6,000 deduction for most older adults earning less than $75,000. The tax on tips and overtime pay, that is like for people making the tax on tips is for people making under $25,000, and it sunsets in 2028. So that's only for 3 years. So the tax on tips deduction for people who make less than $25,000 in tips for 3 years, and the overtime pay is for people who make it's up to like I want to say 15,000 or something like that in overtime pay. May not even be that. Maybe 12,000 something. Anything over that is taxable. Again, 3 years. So while the tax breaks for the rich and stuff in the 4.5 trillion is permanent. Okay, so everything that was previously done in the 2017 tax for all the rich that was about to end at the end of this year is now been permanent, while the no tax on tips for tip workers and stuff is for 3 years. 3 years. Again, they don't care. They just do what they can to make you think that things are good and to make you happy for a little bit, while they make themselves permanent changes that infinitely make them wealthier. There's also a hefty investment, some $250 billion in national security. For Trump's deportation agenda and to help develop the Golden Dome. It's adding like 1.1 trillion to the Pentagon. I mean, it's like the largest, which is the largest ever for our military. I mean, it's crazy. To help offset this lost revenue, the package includes 1.2 trillion in cutbacks to the Medicaid, health care, and food stamps, largely by imposing new work requirements, including for some parents and older people, and a major rollback in green energy tax credits. I think it's roughly around 800 to 900 billion for Medicaid, and some a good chunk of it for food stamps. Putting like work requirements in on both of them, and making cuts to like are forcing states to like take some of the shares of that, and how they reimburse like your like providers and stuff like that. So that's the reason why a lot of them are arguing that you're going to wind up with a lot of rural hospitals and stuff are going to wind up shutting down because they're going to wind up going bankrupt, because they can't cover the cost of the treatment for people on Medicaid if they're not getting the reimbursements back for that cost from the state. There's a whole lot of concern there, that a whole lot of rural hospitals are going to wind up shutting down over this over the next 5 to 10 years. I think specifically the next 5 years. It's the older people thing there, because that's kind of vague. That's where there's going to be work requirements for people from 55 to 62 now, I think it is, or 64, where they're going to have to work in order to receive Medicaid or any kind of, or actually I think it's food stamp stuff. So, yeah. But there's even, while there's not any direct cuts to Medicare or the Social Security, there are kind of indirect things that is going to cause, going to wind up causing cuts to Medicare, or causing like administrative issues with Medicare and Social Security, making it harder for things to get paid, or there's indirect kind of issues that it's going to cause even for Medicare and Social Security as well. So there's a whole lot of issues there where from they stated all along that they were not going to touch Medicaid and Medicare. I mean, you can think about going all the way back to Biden's speech in the State of the Union speech, where he claimed that they were going to make cuts to Medicare and Social Security and stuff, and the whole entire place blew up from the Republicans. Oh, we're not going to do that. No, that's a lie. It's a lie. And he was like, oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I mean, like, how about we have a conversation about that? Call my, because we can show you. We've got the proof where y'all are saying that, stuff like that. And they make a big root and roar about them never touching that, but yet here they are, just a few years later, a couple of years later, and completely putting out a bill that's going to make cuts, huge cuts, to Medicaid, and indirectly it's going to wind up affecting Medicare and Social Security. I mean, apparently he was right. Hey, the motherfucker may have been asleep, but he was right. And we've been talking about this all along. That's all the Republicans have ever wanted to do, is cut. Is cut. Any kind of social safety net for the American people, they want to cut. That's all they've ever wanted to do. They're constantly trying to do that. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates the package will add 3.3 trillion to the deficit over the decade, and 11.8 million people will go without health coverage. The bill would require able-bodied adults without dependent children to work for Medicaid benefits, and in coming years would cap the level at which states can tax medical providers such as hospitals and nursing homes. The American Hospital Association warned that it would lead to the closure of rural hospitals, which serve many Republican congressional districts. The act also imposes work requirements for SNAP recipients for able-bodied adults without dependent children, but it lowers the age in which children are considered dependent to 14 years old, and would require states with high rates of overpayment or underpayment to shoulder part of the cost of administrating SNAP. So they're stating that a lot of the SNAP program is going to wind up underfunded and is going to cause a lot of problems with the ability to have things for people. But the 14-year-old thing is interesting. It's like, hey, once they turn 15, hey, their asses need to be in factories and stuff. They need to be working again. I mean, we've already seen where, states like Arkansas rolled back the work labor laws there for kids. This is what they want. They want 15-year-olds, hardworking, helping pay for the household, so that there's an argument. It's like, oh, if they're making money, they can buy their own food. I mean, they're working a job. They can buy their own food. It shouldn't even come down on the parents to feed their kids. The kids can feed themselves. All right, more. So ICE now the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in history. After voting on the Big Beautiful Bill, the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement is now the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in history. The legislation includes well over $1 billion to help Donald Trump expand his anti-immigration agenda. More than $46.5 billion has been set aside for border wall construction. There you go, 45.6. I said billion, didn't I? I meant billion. As well as $45 billion to increase detention capacity for immigrants in customs in custody, and $30 billion to hire, train, and provide resources for ICE. The idea is they're trying to hire 10,000 more ICE agents, and then give them bonuses as well, like $10,000 bonuses to sign on. So the 10,000 that they are planning to hire are going to get $10,000 bonuses. The legislation also has a minimum of $100 fee for those seeking asylum, though this is down from the previously suggested $1,000 cost, which was shot down by the Senate. For the next 4 years, the agency will reportedly have more money in the budget than the budgets of the FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and Bureau of Prisons combined. Whoa. That's a lot. That's wild. There you go. This bill has made ICE the most funded federal law enforcement agency in history. To put more people on the streets, ripping people off the streets, out of churches, out of schools, your neighbors, your friends, your family. I mean, and throwing them in tented camps like Alligator Alcatraz so that they can be quick turnaround processed through deputized judges that are not even judges. And like I said, we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about that in another video. And then turn around and fly them out, all in the same damn place. That's what we're funding here, all in the name of the mass deportation promise. AOC reacts in talking about this is a big win for Americans across the country. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Fox, those will expire in 2028, correct? Lawler, sure, but that's normal. AOC says it's not normal. Lawyer voted to make the tax breaks on billionaires permanent while making the no tax on tips just for those making less than 25K expire in 3 years. He's also kicking tipped employees off Medicaid, ACA, and clawing back their SNAP. So while you are, that's the idea here also, is that, yes, you've done this no tax on tips for people making less than 25K. It's only for 3 years, but then you're also cutting back all the Medicaid and SNAP programs, which most of those people probably receive benefits from. So it's offset. You're offsetting, at the very least, you're offsetting, if not costing these people more money in the long run. Biden, I don't give a shit about Biden. Oh, yeah. As the Speaker Johnson signed the big, beautiful bill for the legislation is sent to the president, a familiar tune could be heard playing. The YMCA, which became synonymous with Trump's presidential campaign rallies, rang out in the room. I'm telling you, this is a fucking show. This is a game show. This is a game show. Pelosi, which I also don't give a shit about, called it a betrayal, but she did make some good points. Today ushers in a dark, harrowing time for Americans, children, seniors, veterans, working families, and the most vulnerable in our nation. The Republicans' big ugly bill is biggest transfer of money in history to the wealthy and well-connected, paid for by the backs of the American people, is an immoral Robin Hood in reverse of bad economics. The president calls this bill beautiful, but it is beautiful in the eyes of the beholder. Then his vision of America is so seriously blurred. Which is a good point. Now, I don't like a lot of shit she's done, but it's a good point. So yes, the bill was passed. It, the whole idea was, the Republican Party's always kept throwing to, is that, we're not going to add to the deficit. We're not going to add to the deficit. We want to lower the deficit. We want to lower the deficit. But yet it's already been stated that this will raise the debt ceiling from anywhere from 2.8 to 3.3 trillion. That's the estimate over 10 years. And that's the other thing. As I've stated before too, the bill's always been 10 years long, like covering 10 years span of stuff. The most critical and the most critical parts of, or bad parts of, the Medicaid cuts and SNAP program cuts and stuff like that are actually held out until 2028, which is really interesting because, and kind of deceptive, because what's happening here is that they signed this bill and things don't look like they've been totally it comes off for the next 3 years. It's like, oh, well, things aren't really changed that much. So, maybe it really wasn't a big deal. Maybe people were making a big deal out about it, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. I haven't seen that much of a difference. And then all of a sudden in 2028, when whoever comes into power, all of a sudden then they're left with all this shit hitting the fan. And then especially if it was a Democrat that winds up taking the place, and it's, very good chance of that now with all the shit that they're pulling off. They can go, oh, look, the Democrats, there they go again. They're ruining America. Look at everything happening because shit's hitting the fan because of stuff that they implemented. And then by 2028, when somebody else takes power, more or less probably a Democrat or somebody that's not Republican at the very least, hopefully, we'll have a whole shit show to deal with of policies being implemented, delayed policies being implemented by this bill that they were going to point fingers at and be like, hey, look, they're ruining the country. Look at them. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. It's just deceptive. It's deceptive as it can be. And so it makes it look like, oh, to supporters of Trump. Oh, well, they did this thing and everything's cool, and apparently everything's good, and we're making all this money. Everything's happening like that we asked for, and they're getting the people out of here, and everybody acted like it was going to be this crisis, but everything's cool and nothing's really too crazy happened. So it's all deception. It's all deception. While they things are going to be happening, but they're just going to be so slow that you're not going to realize it as much before all of a sudden it hits, and you're like, oh shit. All the tax stuff, so all the people, everything that we previously have stated about on the 2017 taxes, which like 80-something% of the benefits went to the top 1% and whatnot. Those are all going to be permanent now. The one thing that did raise was the tax credit, child tax credit. That does raise to $2,500, but the refundable portion stays at $1,400, and that's something that I actually just figured out myself. Like, if I'm sitting here thinking for years now that whatever the deduction was, it was all refundable. Like, there was no voiding to zero kind of thing, but that is not the case. Under Trump, it has been $1,400. During his first term it was $1,400. Now it's $1,400. So whatever the $2,000, $2,500, or whatever, if you were somebody who normally gets money back, then you don't actually get the full like either 2,000 what was previously under Trump, or 2,500 now that's going to be with this bill. You don't get that. You only get 1,400 back. Where if you didn't, it's like that's refundable. Because if it wasn't refundable, then it would basically be like avoidance. So whatever you owed to the IRS, it would just void it down to zero, but you wouldn't get any additional refund, amount difference in whatever the credit was versus what you owed. So you only benefit from the $2,500 if you owe more than $2,500. Then it would void it down to whatever, and then so if you are somebody who doesn't owe $2,500, then you only get up to $1,400 anyways. So I mean, and the argument was that, oh, if you don't accept this bill, then it's going to go back to pre-2017, which is $1,000 under Obama, which goes back all the way to the original tax code, pretty much that was done in 1986 by Reagan. I mean, and the only difference is that Obama actually is the one that opened up for the refundable stuff. Before Obama, it was not really fully refundable. It was like partially refundable based on income stuff. But under Obama, it basically became all refundable based on earned income and stuff like that. So, and under Biden, his terms were completely refundable. On the few years where they did the extended stuff, where you got $3,000 or $3,600, depending upon if you took it as one payment or a full or monthly payments, those were fully refundable. So you got all that. But under Trump, the first time it was $1,400. Now it's $1,400 again. And also now you require a Social Security number, both the child and the parent. So anybody who is here, even legally, but does not have a Social Security number, can't get the tax credit. So yeah, this is really a mess. Where you have the rich getting more money, getting benefits of tax breaks. And while, yes, to some degree in certain areas, middle class or lower class people are getting some type of a tax break in certain different ways, but a lot of that is being offset or even worsened by the fact of the cuts to Medicaid and the food stamp programs and other stuff around even federal aid for student loans is being affected as well. I mean, there's so many different things that are being affected that are like the social safety nets and stuff that benefit regular people. There are cuts happening to them in major ways that will affect people and completely offset any kind of tax break that any of those people would or are receiving. So there isn't actually any benefit to it. And then on top of that, the added ICE agents, the added border patrol. There's no let's add judges to help, make the process faster and stuff like that. No, instead, we had DeSantis the other day talking about, which I've stated a minute ago, about trying to deputize people, deputize agents as judges and have them process these people. So you basically just have agents deputized pretending to be judges to determine whether or not these people should be here or not, which is not going to be legitimate. It's not, and they're trying to get the judicial system to sign off on that. I highly doubt that's going to happen. But then again, there's the whole idea of them whether or not they're just going to ignore the justice system and do it anyways. I mean, it's plus the inflated Pentagon. So you got all this money. Yeah, we can pay for all this money for the Pentagon. We can pay all this money for border agencies, making them ICE the biggest agency in history, to get people out and do all kinds of unlawful things and treat undocumented immigrants and stuff worse than we even do our own actual criminals. I mean, it is all these things happening, and we're supposed to be happy about it. We're supposed to be praising and thanking the Republican Party for this bill. Quite possibly the worst bill ever presented by an administration, by a Congress. There were already judges. I mean, not judges. Well, maybe people, state AGs and stuff that are already ready to implement lawsuits for different things. So there's the legalities of this are probably going to start popping up here in the next coming weeks and whatnot. How much that's going to actually affect and change anything, I don't know, but it's something to look out for. And yeah, it's just it's craziness. But this is what you get. This is what you get with Trump. This is what you get with MAGA. This is what you get with the Republican Party as it stands today. Let me know in the comments what you think. How do you feel about it? Do you feel the same as I do? Do you feel the same as the people who are criticizing, or are you in favor of it and you think that it's all good and gravy and the best thing that's ever happened to America? You let me know, and I'll see you later. Peace. ClearTalk. I'm out.